Shalom, my friends. Shalom, my enemies. Shalom to all of you. No, you know what? Not shalom to my enemies. Just shalom, my friends. Here on Dave's Gone By on this Shabbos morning, October 14th, 2023. I am Rabbi Sol Solomon, founder, spiritual leader of Temple Sons of Bitches in Great Neck, New York. Delighted to be here. Delighted to talk music. The thing that brings people together as opposed to everything exploding apart at the moment. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a guest in the neighborhood who knows a thing or two about music because he is an Oscar-winning, Golden Globe-winning songwriter. You might have heard of a song or two that he's written, particularly if you know the movie Dirty Dancing. Me, I tend to do more dirty davening, but he does dirty dancing, including the classic songs Hungry Eyes, and of course, I've had, in parentheses, the time of my life. He is also the founder of the independent record label OMAD. As a matter of fact, that label kind of was the start for a band that became Maroon 5. And he himself, JOHN DeNICOLA, has put out an album just 2 years ago called She Said. So he's doing his own music too. So won't you kindly welcome to the neighborhood, JOHN DeNICOLA. Shalom, John.
Shalom. Good morning.
Good morning to you. How you doing?
I'm very good. I'm enjoying your energy this morning.
This is good. I'm enjoying my angina this morning, so I'm gonna have to watch my heart. So I love even where you are, right? Is that like in a farmhouse or just the door is distressed?
I have to tell you, it's I'm recovering. I'm recovering from, it's about my 18th day, 4th day maybe of negative COVID. So I'm out in a converted. It's a very nice cottage.
Converted? Was it not Jewish before?
It was chicken coop.
So this is outside. You're in your domicile, but you're in a special room, separating from who? From your wife? From who? From
Yes, my wife. My wife. Yeah, she has yet to ever have COVID, and I didn't want to give it to her. I happened to go out to Long Island to unfortunately a friend's funeral. And I'm sure that's where I got it.
But here's the deal. Has your wife been telling you that it takes more than 14 days? And she said, oh, no, it's 2.5 months. You have to isolate for 2.5 months.
No. It's me, really. I just want to make sure because I don't want to. I'm fine. We're in fact, today we're moving. I'm moving out. I'm moving back in.
Or so you think. Somehow the plumber's been coming around every evening at like 7.
Yeah.
What's been? No, kidding. How was your COVID though? Did you suffer? Was it bad? Was it not?
It was not bad. It was long though. I tested positive for a long time. It was all right here.
Yep.
I had I didn't have the energy. I had energy. I didn't have that, where I can't get out of bed at all. In fact, I almost had more energy. No headache, no loss of taste
and smell.
Yeah. So it's just, but it would, a couple of times it got a little scary. So I took Paxlovid. And I think it really helped.
Oh, good. Oh, Mazel. And you look fine. You sound absolutely fine.
I feel good today. I'm raring to go.
So when you say raring to go, what is your average day like as a person who runs a label, who does music production, who makes songs? How do you parcel out the time of your day creatively and businessly?
Yeah, well, it tends to go, you're in the studio recording an artist for a month or two. And then it goes into putting the record out to the public. And so then there's the PR that goes along with that. And, that could be another 2 months. So it comes in waves. I could be out in the studio for months and then I'm not back in the studio for months. So I just put out, we put out about 4 records this last summer. So, and they're all doing well. One just came out and he's out touring, and a guy named Robert LaRoche, an album called Forevermore. And before that was a gentleman, Peter Lewis, who is, if you remember, you may not, Loretta Young was an Academy Award winning actress.
Yeah.
And her son was Peter Lewis, and he was in a band called Moby Grape, which was an almost famous, very influential band. And then his daughter, we did a record with his daughter. So, but I just did Peter's record.
So you pulled your Peter out essentially at that point. Yes.
I did.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just, it feels good to have someone like Peter, who is just it's musically and philosophically a genius. In fact, we're doing a documentary. My son is doing a documentary on Peter's life, but it's more about Peter. His daughter Arwen came to him when she was 26 and said, teach me music, teach me, you know, guitar. And so she became an artist. And so it's the documentary is called Fall on You, which was a famous song of his in Moby Grape.
Right.
And that's essentially what it is, Fall on You. You know, I'm gonna, it fell on him from his mom. And now he's
falling on the door. Let me ask you though, what do you say that an album in this day and age, in 2023, is quote unquote successful, is doing well? What is that even? I mean, are you putting out CDs anywhere? Is there vinyl in a shop? What is a successful record?
Yeah, that's a hard one.
That's what she said.
I'm gonna get on my soapbox here. You know, my success was during the heyday when LPs and CDs were and radio, terrestrial radio was something. Now, streaming has destroyed the business. Streaming, and maybe your listeners should take note, if you like an artist, if you're you know, enjoying an artist, try and download the music they're doing, you know, where you pay 90 cents a song, or try and buy the CD or the LP that they offer, because that's the only way they're going to see money. Streaming, yeah. I can get 15 million streams per quarter, you know, so for 3 months I can get, you know, with Dirty Dancing, The Time, Dirty Bit, Hungry Eyes, and the rest of my catalog. And out of that, I'll see about $300. And that's for, yes, you heard right.
Millions of streams.
Millions of streams.
Paid for stream, in other words, through Spotify, through you know, Apple Music, like iTunes. So that's the legal stuff, not just people watching it for free on YouTube or whatever the hell.
Right. iTunes still, because you download from iTunes, although they're kind of phasing that out. That still pays okay. Apple Music, not so much, although they pay better than Spotify. And like YouTube pays nothing. We're talking about, for a stream, the songwriter might get 0.0001 cent, so 1,000th of a penny for a stream.
So if you talk about these artists that you are producing on the OMAD label here, then these are people who are, with all due respect, not getting 15 million downloads the way I've had the time of my life would. So what are they getting? Like $8.40? I mean, how do they make, or just on tour? What do they do?
Yeah, tour. Some of these artists are in the older, you know, 50 and over. So their audience still buys CDs.
Which is nice. Okay.
Which is nice. I'm hoping kids, because apparently the younger generation is starting to get into CDs a little bit. And we all know that vinyl has come back a little bit. Yeah. But vinyl is just hard. It's come back, but it's very hard for the audience to find that vinyl piece, you know. But you know, we basically our sales for CDs are through the website omadrecords.com.
Is anybody making a profit at this point? I mean, thank God I'm sure you're comfortable from just the money that you made 40 years ago. I'm sure you live a nice life thanks to, you know, and if your song is still used in a TV show or something.
Yes, all the time. Yep.
Is that
happens all the time.
Yeah.
So you're right. You're correct. So you know, break even, maybe make a couple of bucks is about where we're at these days, you know, with CDs and such. You know, like, again, the Spotify's and all that, is that if you had to make it on that alone.
Well, how would you, you know,
we're hoping.
Yeah.
I have someone I'm working with now that I'm getting all this catalog to, that works film and TV. So film and TV is where it's at now. I don't want to say unfortunately, but you know, terrestrial radio is semi-finished, because now iHeart and Cumulus, a couple of huge companies, dictate what every station plays all over the country. So there's like one guy, you know, so the old days of wonderful radio was.
The radio was never, what radio always sucked, just now it really sucks worse.
Yes, okay.
It was never good.
It was pretty good for songwriters got paid from radio. Songwriters.
Money, maybe, yeah.
Yeah. But you know, you used to be able to have a regional breakout, right? So my band is doing well in the Albany area, and the label and the stations around here are starting to play the record because it's a local band phenomenon. And then it bursts, and that doesn't happen anymore.
But the spot you're in is that the one place that probably still you can break things is college radio, but college is not going to be listening to 50, 60-year-old artists that you're producing. So it's a catch-22.
Well, they're not bad in that regard, to be honest. They're kind of open-minded.
That's good.
And so I do, depending on the project, I do, I'm getting one of these things out, so I'll stop coughing.
Yeah.
I do, depending on the artist, I do go to college radio, and it's been successful in that it gets the word out, you know, people. But the problem with college is, you know, a couple of years later, those guys are all gone, and the next kids come in, you know.
That's true. There has to be turnover. Let me ask you, let's roll it back, because I'm sure everybody wants to know, and the story you must have told 40 million times, because you've written bunches of songs, but, you know, there's the one song, the song that's going to be, God forbid, you know, it should be 50 years away, but on your tombstone, like, this is the guy who co-wrote I've Had the Time of My Life. Do you remember writing and co-writing that number? Like, who came up with what was it like that morning? We were all like a piano. How did it happen?
Yeah, well, it didn't quite happen that way. Frankie Previtt, one of my co-writers, and Donald Markowitz is the other.
Jew. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Very nice man. Frankie, so two Italians and a Jew come into a bar. No, just kidding. Frankie Previtt was on a record label called Millennium that Jimmy Einer was the head of. Jimmy Einer produced a lot of stuff, the Raspberries, some Three Dog Night, a bunch of things, but he also produced Frankie and the Knockouts, which Frankie was the singer of. Frankie had a couple of hits. Jimmy was the music supervisor for Dirty Dancing, and he called Frankie. Frankie had gotten dropped from the label, Jimmy's label, because Jimmy stopped having a label. He got into film, and so Frankie was working on a new record to try and get a record deal again. And so we actually had written Hungry Eyes together for Frankie's record. And Jimmy called in the midst of our getting songs together and said, I have this movie. The song needs to start out slow. It's the big ending scene needs to start out slow and go into this dance thing. And, cited a couple of songs for us to, but he wasn't asking us to do the song. He was asking us to give a shot, put our song in with everybody else. It was a cattle call. It wasn't like we had the gig. So, we started, I started working with Donnie Markowitz because we had been working together, and I knew he had a drum machine, which was new then. And I figured that was the dance too. We need a drum machine. So I went over to Donnie, and we together put down the music track that you hear, and sent that to Frankie. And Frankie, a lot of top line people, I guess, you put the track in and it gets a mood going, and you start to the music. And that's what Frankie did. And then he wrote the lyrics.
But your input was more than just, hey, let's try the drum machine. What was your input to the song?
Donnie and I
Yeah.
sat at the keyboard. I actually sat at the keyboard, and Donnie said, try this. And I said, try that. And, here comes the B verse, and here comes the chorus. And then we got
Beavers. There's that kind of movie. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And, Donnie and I worked the music track out together, wrote the music track, right? One of the interesting points in the chorus, because a 1/6, I'm talking musical here. I don't know how musical you are, but the 1 chord to the minor 6 to the 4 to the 5 is a very common, every doo-wop thing in the world has that chord progression. So we went 1 minor 6, and then we went up to the flat 7. And I remember distinctly saying, Donnie, let's just try this. And that sort of gives that, I don't know, it enables that sort of euphoric chorus to take off. Yeah, it's just
it's one little thing. It's one.
And it just forced Frankie to go a certain place. So the music kind of dictates where the melody can go, obviously.
Wow.
And that was our one. And then, I can't say we said, oh, hey, we're going to do this flat 7 chord and that's going to make the song. We just did, as musicians do, you just do something and
instinctively, and you follow it, and
you hear it.
30 million copies later, there
you
you
go.
Exactly.
Maybe more.
Go
ahead.
Well, no, I just want to remind people we're talking with JOHN DeNICOLA, who wrote several of the songs for the movie co-wrote several of the songs from the movie Dirty Dancing, as well as bunches of other tunes. And you were also a musician before that. You toured in the 1980s and 90s with people like Corey Hart and Paul Young. So do you have any stories of just like groupies or touring madness or craziness, or is that overstated?
That's over. Well, I don't know, because I didn't do that much touring. I worked with those artists mostly in the studios and like Today's Show. It wasn't an actual tour. So I have none of those. I never really toured. I maybe I'm lucky. I don't know. I auditioned for Hall & Oates and I came in second years before all this. Daryl Hall and John Oates, and in a way, I'm thankful I didn't, because that would have taken me down a different path as a sideman. I think as a bass player sideman, as opposed to I got to write songs for these original bands I'm in, and trying to get a record deal. So I feel sort of lucky that I didn't get the touring thing going.
Now, by the way, I should mention that this program was initiated, emerged out of Long Island, started on a Long Island radio station. You are a Smithtown-y, or were a Smithtown boy. Well, so do you have any memories of Long Island growing up and that area?
Well, I was born in Amityville.
Oh.
I am not the Amityville Horror, as far as I know.
Right.
I lived there so that was a profound influence on me, because your early years, it was elementary school. Then we moved to Centerport, which is near Huntington. And I spent till about 10th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade there. Then I moved to Smithtown. So we moved around. My dad was a builder, so we moved around a lot. But my bands, I played in a band called Sweetback. And we played a lot at a place called Tui's in Setauket, Stony Brook, and so I played everywhere on Long Island. I played.
My father's place in Roslyn. You
Oh
ever-
yes,
Of course.
yes,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. I played there in an original band called Flight, which was a jazz fusion band, and we got signed to Motown Records and did a record for Motown, and then years later, Erykah Badu sampled one of our songs for her hit Back in the Day.
So there you go. There's another revenue stream that you probably still get a check from, every couple of months.
Yes.
Thank you, Erykah. This is,
Yes, thank you, Erykah, and Motown, because she was a Motown artist, and how else would she have found that record?
I know, right? They think about
Yeah.
so did you have to give her permission, or just the label do it, or the whoever holds the copy?
No, you can do it. You can do it. You
don't
have
have
to
to pay.
pay. Exactly. Yeah, you can't. Once a song is released, anybody can record it, as long as they're not changing too much.
Now, what was your first
There's no
instrument?
lyrics.
Was it bass or guitar or
Hey,
keyboard?
well, I started out guitar lessons, but then I met two friends of mine. They were brothers, and we had like in 7th grade, we had a mutual interest in playing music, so we started a band. They were both guitarists, so I picked up bass. They were
And
probably
what-
better than me, so.
So in that stage, what kind of bands were you guys all listening to, and what genre would you have?
That's a great question. Way back then, or high
Yeah.
school? God, I don't know if I could. Well, yeah. I'm gonna go with a band called Moby Grape,
Oh,
Which-
okay, fine, yes.
aforementioned. Traffic, Steve Winwood's Traffic, then Blind Faith, and Cream, The Doors. At that point, that's what we were. But we were doing original music, crazily enough. We didn't start doing cover tunes till we started Sweetback and toward the toward the Long Island tri-state area, I would say. It was initially a 7-piece band, and actually our sax player got hired from us out of our band to Billy Joel's band, a guy named Rich Canada.
Oh, my, yeah. He's
yeah.
on some of the, the major.
So, yeah, he played for many years with Billy. But we had a 7-piece band, and we were doing initially, before disco became disco, we were doing what I considered really cool music, Barry White or the Stylistics, and soul, 70s soul.
Sure.
That
Yeah.
ended up turning into disco, which wasn't as much fun as we had this guy, in fact, that's the gentleman I was who passed away that I was visiting, but Tim Lawless was our singer, and he was the reason we were so good, because he was this, I don't want to say.
He have like a Barry White kind of a voice. Oh, baby. Oh,
But then,
damn it,
yes.
yeah, well,
But he could also sing a Ronnie Isley song with a falsetto. So he was
baby. Yes.
No, he was awesome. He was just he did some stuff in the music business, worked with Debbie Gibson and a couple other people, but he never got, we were asked to submit some songs for Tony Otita, who was a manager of Foghat out on Long Island, and we didn't follow up as we should have, and so he never got to where he could have been. He was just a spectacular. So he could do the Barry Whites and then go Earth, Wind and Fire. He could do that too. So Tim was very talented, and then we had a horn section. So and then as music changed, we changed a bit. We went to, I remember in the last few years, we would be doing Steely Dan songs, which nobody else was doing in the clubs, so.
I can't say I'm a big Steely Dan fan.
They're a funny band. It's either wow, Steely Dan, or I don't really like Steely Dan. It's a funny thing.
I'm not an
what
Eagles
about him, you
person
think?
either. I can leave that whole sort of
What's,
Eagles,
say that again?
not an Eagles
Oh,
fan
no.
either. The Philadelphia Phillies for sure, but the Eagles not so.
I
No,
love
but
this.
there you go.
But I hear you on the Eagles. I don't know if you probably know the Big Lebowski line, right? Oh, not the Eagles, man. And then the guy throws him out of the car. From the Big Lebowski again. I'm not a huge Eagles fan either, but Steely Dan, I don't know. Maybe they're a musician's band because it's very sophisticated chordally and structurally, and I guess maybe you have to like Donald Fagen's voice. That could be hard.
And Joni Mitchell loves them. I never understood. She kind of, because maybe the jazz contingent.
Yeah, they write some great music. They really do.
All right. Anyway, speaking of music, we're talking, of course, with JOHN DeNICOLA here. I want to, since you know, I got this and this and this. I'm assuming you're Italian.
Yeah, Italian heritage, yes.
Italian.
Both
So,
sides, mom and dad.
are religious growing up? Not religious. Religious now? Any kind of in there, or
you know, early on, you know, I did the thing. My mom, you know, confirmed Catholic, but I wouldn't say I'm religious. I'm I don't know what to say. Spiritual, I guess. I'm.
You're a musician, is it? Yeah.
I'm a musician. I look out around me here. I'm upstate New York, and I look out around and I see the beauty in nature and everything, and it makes me feel like, you know, bound to something greater. So
Boundless, I like that. Boundless. Now, speaking of something greater, you're still doing even getting over COVID. Still doing what you do. Still running. Like sometimes, as you said, you're weeks in a studio. Sometimes not. Always. Is there a point when you will slow or stop the label or stop discovering new acts or signing people or any of that? Or you're going to do that for another 10, 20 years?
I'm gonna do it as long as I can. It doesn't hurt me to do it. You know, I think it's good for the brain. You know, I'm actually in the studio now, just doing some tracks for my friend who's doing sort of taking some 60s and 70s unsung hits and remaking them, trying to involve the original artist with it.
Ooh.
If can. And so, you know, like today I put down a piano yesterday. I'll be putting down a bass part and an organ part and, you know, even some percussion parts. So
when you said that, are you playing the instruments or are you plugging down somebody else is coming in? You're just at the
no,
board?
I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I have all those instruments out there, and that's almost my favorite thing to do. It's, you know, just put down a interesting new part.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm a bass player by trade, but I can eke out a part on just about any instrument. I have a bass clarinet, I have marimbas, I have a piano, I have an organ.
I have an organ too, but only my wife sees that. But you know,
Yeah.
it's a little comedy right there. So do you, can I ask you, is like the Beatles and George Martin accomplished so much of what they did on like an 8 or maybe at most of 16?
4.
So, four. They were on a 4-track thing.
Started
How
on
many
4.
tracks do you really? Yeah, I'm sure you have a board that goes from here to here. How many of those knobs do you actually use?
Well, unfortunately, you don't even need a board like that. I only have 16 channel board, but with Pro Tools, it's all in the computer. So you could have 64 channels or 80, what you can have as many channels as you want, which I don't really use. I use only what's needed. It depends. I also have a 16-track 2-inch tape machine.
Right.
Because
that's
that's
on another website. There was a thing where you've gotten into like reel to reel again. What's up with real? I mean, it's oxide, like soft. Why are you using this?
I was mixing to reel because it you know, it kind of adds a little bit of sack to, say, the drums and the bass and guitars and stuff. So you still can't beat analog. People use
Really?
use digital because it's more convenient, but analog sounds the best. So even if I record drums to Pro Tools digital, after that session, once I have the drums together, I'll run them through my 16-track 2-inch tape machine just to add that
Really?
analog sound back in.
But you put it on your tape machine, you still have to go back into digital. Does it get lost? Is it?
No,
No,
no, it's still an improvement
really.
to
Well,
me.
and you can
Sonically.
hear it with you don't have deafness residual from your usual musician thing.
No,
You know, you
no, I mean, I hear it, I feel it. I feel that I'm gonna go with this spiel too.
Sure.
I wish I could find the initial article I read about it, but there's a contention that the human ear retains something that was recorded analog better than it retains something that was recorded digitally. That's why you get kids who still want to hear The Who. Now, they may be listening on a digital thing, but it was recorded analog. And
it makes a difference. It makes a literal.
it makes a better imprint on our brains.
And I would imagine
hearing.
you feel yourself in the studio as opposed to just they would say sterility is the feeling you would get for something that's completely digital, or is that
Digital, yeah, I mean, how there's so many plugins for digital to try and make it sound like analog, you know what I mean? So they're emulating it. And for instance, I have a reverb unit that came to me a few years ago. It used to be in Motown with Lamont Dozier and Brian Holland's studio, and I knew I wanted one, and I bought it, and the guys who delivered it to me said, yeah, when we picked it up, the guy had a lot of Gladys Knight plaques on the wall, and I said, oh, that's got to be Tony Camillo, because I knew he did a lot of those records, because I knew it came from Jersey. So long story short is it came from Tony's studio, and my mentor for production, Ed Stasium, worked at that studio, and we did the demo for The Time of My Life at that studio back then. And somehow that reverb, so the reverb is from the 50s. It's a 4x8 chunk of metal in a box, and you send the signal to it and it reverberates, and then it picks up mics and send it back. So that in the 50s, that was the first, before that they used rooms, they put a mic in a room.
Bathroom. That's the best place to,
right.
Yeah.
And then this was the first, and so it has a West German thing on it. So it was before the wall was down. It was made. What was my point? Oh, they make a digital plugin of the EMT unit, the one that I have, but it's a digital plugin, and it's really good, really good. But when you hear it compared to the real thing, it's that 10-15%.
Yeah.
It's just a little more. For instance, my wife, who's not in the business, I would come in, I'd play her, so listen to this mix and then listen to this mix. And I go, which one do you like better? She would always choose the one with the real reverb on the vocal.
Yeah, analog reverb. That's
every time. And
wow.
she didn't know. She she has a really good ear. My wife has a really good ear. But
by the way, how did you meet your spouse?
Well, we both were living in West Village. And I was walking to my chiropractor because I went windsurfing and hurt my neck. And I saw her come down the steps, but I didn't say anything the first time. I saw her a couple of times. And another time I was walking home from it, and she was walking her dog. And so I walked ahead of her, slowing down, looking at menus that I really didn't want to see. And I finally had the nerve to, my line was, are you married or going out with anyone? Which was a horrible line.
Oh my God, wow. What, not even
seemed to work.
hi or the time, or can you recommend one of these restaurants? Like,
Yeah, no,
wow.
it was pretty straightforward. She did say that she felt her dog had always had a sixth sense, and the dog just sat down and laid, just sat there. And so she thought that was a good sign. So.
Oh, yay. And how long have you been together? I'm married. How long? For
30 years.
Mazel. What does she do? Is she working, retired, or what does she do?
She's retired. I mean, she was a few things. She was in Kansas, Wichita area. She was a anchor newswoman for a while, a reporter, and then a newswoman for a while. Then she moved to New York, and she was acting. She was working with who's the famous acting teacher?
Stella Adler, Uga Hagen, Herbert Berghoff, the Jewish guy, the other Jewish guy.
Might have been the other Jewish guy.
The Jewish guy.
I can't think of his,
yeah, all right, but yeah.
can't think of his name. Anyway, but she was married to someone, and then he passed away, and so she kind of stopped acting, and that's when I ran into her a couple of years after that.
Mazel Miklik. This is a lovely, wonderful, because they warn women about musicians, but you didn't have the typical musician's life. I
didn't. I have to say I was very lucky. I mean, we got in under the limbo bar there because we had a big selling record, and at that time, if we had a big selling album now, streaming, I wouldn't be able to retire. On that. I mean, it's there's no comparison. There's no.
Let me ask you a question. What music do you? We'll just have a minute or two left here with John DeNICOla. What music do you listen to these days?
I'm just gonna.
What you're producing? Sorry.
DeNICOla. DeNICOla.
DeNICOla.
Yes.
On that DeNICOla.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So what was the question?
What bands, what artists, what albums do you have on your playlist? What are you paying for to download, as it were?
I buy records. I buy LPs. I have a LP system in almost every room of my house. So almost anywhere you go, you can pick up an album and put it on somewhere. Well, these days was the last few things I bought. I buy a lot of older stuff that I hadn't heard back in the day. I do in a newer artists. I really like Tame Impala, Alex.
Oh, yeah.
Alex G. Yeah. I mean, I lately I've been. You were asking me earlier what bands we were into when we were young. I got into Frank Zappa for a while in my high school years, and I've sort of been listening again to him lately, just because I see him in a whole different light now. He was a workaholic. Everything he wrote was written down, scored, everything. And if you ever listen to some of the stuff, he had Ruth Underwood, who was she played, well, she was a marimba.
Oh, she was marimba. I'm sorry.
And
Jean-Luc Ponty was the violin guy.
Yeah, Jean-Luc Ponty, right? It's just astounding. It's astounding he wrote all those notes and the sound of that, and it was even more astounding that she could play it. Just, but just amazing. And the bands were so tight. What else have I been listening to? A lot of Neil Young.
What era of Zappa have you been like?
I like the early era. I didn't like when he started to do too much silly lyric, I didn't, so.
So you're talking like almost early Zappa mothers, like.
Yeah, Uncle Mead, the first record, and then like Uncle Mead, and into Weasels Rip My Flesh, Chunga's Revenge. I mean, all that stuff. The Grand Wazoo is just an
That was
awesome
pretty good. Yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're a Zappa fan?
Yeah, but it also stops kind of, long before ship arriving, too late to save a drowning witch. I'm like, nah, get out.
Yeah. No.
After
Why?
Joe's Garage 2, it was,
You know, he
yeah.
did explain it, and I understand it now. I'm like you. I was like, I can't listen to this anymore. He explained in one, I've been watching some of his, I've been going a little bit of a rabbit hole, some of his documentaries, and he was trying to get to the person that wasn't necessarily a musician, or, and so with like a lyric that he thought would draw them in. It was a simple lyric and a simpler melody, but then he'd put this stuff behind it. So he was kind of infiltrating, their psyche by, tricking them into thinking they're listening to something simple when it was very intricate musically behind what he was doing. I guess he felt that was the way to gain a bigger audience. I thought, well, gee, he made it. He was always doing projects that cost a lot of money, because think about it, he hiring, the Philharmonic or whatever. So he was always putting a lot of money out. So he wasn't like in the dough. I mean, he was always,
Yeah, whatever he made plugged back into his art.
Yeah. He wasn't
more of it were listenable. I mean, this idea of, I can take a guitar solo that I wrote for something else and plug it into an entirely different song, which is theoretically interesting, but musically, like, well, if it's so generic, and the music is, I could listen to either one and they're both boring. So stop.
Right. So anyway,
who else are you listening to?
Who else? Neil Young. I love Neil Young. I mean, he just, you don't like him?
Of course, I love Neil Young.
Love. I mean, did you hear his last? I think it was called Barn.
Barn is already like 5 albums. He puts out like 6 albums a year now. He's just nonstop.
I know, and not
the most recent anymore. But Barn was okay. I like me again. Mostly the older.
Yeah. That, of course, that stuff is
a
great.
whole decade of older, from like 1970s. Nobody topped him. Yeah.
Right, but you got to give him kudos for being a 78-year-old man to still do something that sounds contemporary.
True. Absolutely.
Not easy. Not everybody can do that.
No. I mean, Dylan is trying, and much less often and in much weirder ways.
Yeah. That last, I don't know if it's the last record, the one where he kind of talks the whole thing. That long,
rough and rowdy ways.
Yeah.
You ever expected? But come on, think about it. After all those albums of Americana, of the Great American Songbook, where you wonder, okay, he's lost his mind. he's gone around completely around the bend, and then he came back. So who knows? Who knows if that's his last? It may not. You never.
Oh yeah, no, I we don't know. I don't listen to too much Springsteen, but I did buy his last record. And what else? Father John Misty.
Oh, I've heard him. I do not know him. You like the Father John?
No, I think you'd like him. Just from our conversation. It was record Chloe and something really nice. I mean, I didn't realize he came out of Fleet Foxes, if you know the band.
Fleet I've heard of them. Yeah, they're nice. There's a nice, gentle.
Yeah,
I like nice and gentle with my proctologist and my music. It's a theme.
Yeah,
anyway, we have been having a nice, gentle conversation with the delightful and talented John DeNicola.
DeNicola.
Yeah.
Think about Nicola, DeNicola, of Nicola, right? Isn't that what that means?
Like the Uncola.
Yeah, exactly.
DeNicola.
There we go.
DeNicola. Like a dagger, like that.
You got it.
John DeNicola.
DeNicola. DeNicola. That's what when we won the Oscar, Liza Minnelli, she said it just like you did.
Oh, well.
On DeNicola.
I like to call it Liza Minnelli. So there you go. That's how we get it. But anyway, please go. You have a website, right? OMAD Records
omadrecords.com. By the way, OMAD comes from Ordinary Madness, comes from Charles Bukowski. In my younger years, I read a lot of Charles
Of
Bukowski,
course you did. You're a musician. Yeah.
and it kind of stuck. But so it's OMAD, OMAD records.com. And you
this
can
is
see
the
all
place
the
where-
artists we have there.
And the artists that you produce, and also they can get your albums. You have She Said from 2021, and there was one before that, I think from
The Why Because from 2019, which includes my versions of my co-written songs, Hungry Eyes and The Time of My Life. Time of My Life, we went complete opposite of what the one we all know is. I just took an acoustic guitar and a French horn and sang one verse, one chorus, and that was it.
Well, very McCartney-esque there. We're gonna have to listen to
Yeah,
this.
maybe.
Go get these 2 albums from John DeNicola. Got it. As well as check out his website for all the others that he's producing, omadrecords.com. John, I must say I have had the time of my life chatting. How many times have you heard that to end an interview? The time of our lives talking with you, enjoying your stories, enjoying your music. It has been a delight to welcome you into the neighborhood. I want to wish you many more years of music and marriage and good, healthy, happy things. And shalom to you.
And to you also. Thanks. I really enjoyed it.
Me too. Bye-bye now. Shalom.
See ya. Bye.